Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls, episode 16. Another day in paradise? Why the OG cryptocurrencies need saving, and how a bright future ought to become a reality. This Crypto Hipsters Curtain Call episode relies on clips from four conversations I've had over season 6 through 8, three from season 8, and the last one from season 7. The conversations that I had on this episode are first with David Schwartz, who is the board director at the Litecoin Foundation. He and I spoke in March 2025 about embracing a brighter vision for the future of Litecoin and its global adoption in 2025 and beyond. The second clip was with Alon, who was the CEO and founder of SSV Labs. We spoke about actually his call to action to save Ethereum from an impending disaster. We spoke in May 2025. That's also season 8. The third conversation from October 2024 was with Ganesh Swami, who's a co-founder of Covalent. And we spoke about leading the change to safeguard and enhance Ethereum's historical data availability. And fourth, last but not least, I spoke with Spring Dunn from season 7 in April 2024. She is the director of marketing at SKALE Labs, and we spoke about uncovering the secret to saving Ethereum users billions of dollars in transaction fees by using the SKALE Labs platform. And those four make up this 16th episode of the Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls, titled again, Another Day in Paradise? Why the OG cryptocurrencies need saving and how a bright future ought to become reality. This is the 16th episode out of 67 for the Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls. Sit back, enjoy, and the full podcasts, of course, are available on Crypto Hipster. All my podcasts are available on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, iHeartRadio, anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. See you next time, and enjoy. How do we deal with that kind of situation where we all want the price to go up, but we also want it to be a payment system?
Yeah, I think it really is more reflective of whatever the transaction fees would be versus maybe the price of Litecoin, because most people are going to be buying Litecoin based off of a dollar nomination or whatever currency they use, right? So the only reason why you would also want it to go up are two. One would be for your purchasing power if you already bought it at like $80 and you want more purchasing power. When it goes up to 100, 150, 200, 250, you obviously can buy more with the amount that you had at 80, right? But the other reason would be obviously for people that are investing in it. So what you end up having is somewhere along the line, those powers that be that have the most influence in the Bitcoin space, because it is decentralized for all intents and purposes, the crypto itself, the ledger is decentralized. The efforts around it, maybe not so much, right? And I think that's where people get lost in all of this is Bitcoin is decentralized. The ledger is decentralized. The efforts around that are not so decentralized. It's matured over time. And just like anything that comes out good at the beginning, as time goes by, people tend to distort it and mutate it and make it into whatever creates power, wealth, or control. Like those are the things that usually dictate how things go. And so over time, there is a shift in mentality from sort of this anarchist type of this is a new form of money, giving the system the finger. We can do transactions outside of the regular, financial system to, oh my gosh, we need, Uncle Government to be able to say this is okay to put into ETFs, and now let's get a Bitcoin reserve and all these other things that those are all geared towards price appreciation. None of that's geared towards using it as a peer-to-peer network, right? Not to say that it can't, because that's how it was built. So there is the functional aspect of it that still holds true, where you can transact it in that manner. The problem with that is it becomes more costly too, because Bitcoin in and of itself at 5 to 7 maximum transactions per second isn't built for global transactional use like that, right? So that's why you end up seeing congestion and rising transaction fees, where they're proud of when it hits $4 on average for a transaction for the fee, because there's been times when it's hit 25, 30, $40 for a transaction on average, right? Some of that obviously is based on the total that's being sent, but a lot of that isn't. It ends up being a priority based transaction where you end up paying more just to have it put on into the next block, right? So now there's an incentive for miners to add those transactions because you're throwing extra money at them to do it, right? And so along the way, it was obvious that they had to go more towards this store of value as the primary mantra, right? Narrative for it, because it's not going to fit the peer-to-peer. Lightning Network is not the answer at this point. And so how do you win the hearts and minds of those that have the most amount of money and can appreciate the price exponentially in a shorter amount of time? It's a store of value. It's a reserve. It's, hold it. You don't do anything with it. You just hold it. You die with it. You burn your keys, you whatever, all this different stuff that they say, right? And that's how you get the price you have today, and how you will continue to get that rise in price, that then when they talk about everything else going to zero against it, that's what they're talking about, because nothing is going to have that type of price appreciation that Bitcoin will. And that's just the truth, right? But that doesn't solve the other issues we have in society. You need something else for that. And so that's where you end up having a Litecoin or an Ethereum or whatever else that solves a problem that Bitcoin most likely is not going to end up solving, right?
Okay, so let's take three of those. Let's take those three priorities, right, that you just mentioned, right? How do you achieve what's the best path forward to each of those three?
So PR and marketing, the best way forward is just putting it as one of the priorities. Like, if you go back 2 years ago, and from the beginning of Ethereum until 2 years ago, Vitalik was really the face of Ethereum. The genius boy that comes and despite all odds, he's the smartest guy in the world, etc. That was the narrative, and people really believed that. But now it's kind of shifted, both because Ethereum grew up, Vitalik grew up, like things change in that regard. And so we need now the EF to actually prioritize PR and marketing. We need people when there's a big conference on Wall Street or in Asia, we need people from Ethereum representing Ethereum the same way as other blockchains are doing. It's not beneath us. It's not countercultural. It is what it is. It's communicating, educating about Ethereum. If ultimately you have a big bank always meeting Solana for the first time, you can talk about technology as much as you want, but ultimately you put a face to the technology and they will go with Solana. And so hopefully, thankfully it doesn't happen yet, but I mean, if it does continue, what will happen. So PR and marketing, it's a matter of priority. Number two is user experience, and in that regard, I think we're on a right path. Justin Drake is leading the working force on synchronous composability, which will basically make atomic transactions between L2s and L1 fast as lightning, and also atomic, which means that you can trade between, let's say, you want to sell an asset on base and move it away to whatever Arbitrum. You can do that in one transaction, atomic transaction, and pre-confirmations will enable you to do that with sub 100 millisecond confirmation times. Best user experience in the world. If we can reach that in 12 months, we're golden. The value capturing is a bit more difficult because I think that Ethereum, the community, is not ready to talk about the problem of ETH, the token. But I think that we need to prioritize how do we capture value back to ETH with all of the activity that's happening. One is, for example, just charge more for blob space, for transactions, etc., etc. Second is promote things like based applications. The idea that you can extend if validators, get them to do more, earn more rewards. And those rewards go straight back to Ethereum holders. That's a really good narrative. We need to stop talking about 3% APR on staking. We need to talk about how we extend that without increasing inflation, and that's based applications, basically. And so it's really a matter of focus, I think. The Ethereum Foundation has a lot of weight in the way people decide what to invest in and what to do. And I think they simply need to put their foot down and say, this is important.
Yeah. I think what it might help too, right, is if you see the ETH tokens that are not ETH gain value, and then the community stop infighting and then they support Ethereum.
Yeah.
Right. So this renaissance, let's say it fails. Let's see the continued have divergence between, Ethereum and the blockchain and ETH, the price. What does the multi-chain world look like without Ethereum or with a failing Ethereum? Like, how do we achieve a multi-chain
I'm not
world?
even considering. I'm very militant about what we should do. It's not a matter of if we should do that. It's a matter of when and how we should do that. There's no way Ethereum is failing. There's no way the most elaborate, decentralized example of open source code is just gonna die into the history of blockchains. It's not the case. Ethereum will win. We just need the more voices saying something is wrong. Let's fix it. It's that simple. Stop treating the Ethereum price as if it's just coincidental that you have ups and you have downs. No, it's not the case. Bitcoin is up, Solana was up, Ethereum is consistently down. It's not 2 or 3 months, it's the past 2 years. We need to consider the effects of that. And it's not beneath us. It's not countercultural to the cyberpunk movement. All is good. We're growing up. We need to grow up with, we are at a point where global adoption of crypto is happening. And we need to adapt. It's not like a small community anymore that, you can talk about super technical, high level things and people will, just read a white paper or 50 page white paper. It's not the case. They're not those types of users. And so it's not beneath us. We need to just take proactive action and do that. And I think we'll be just fine.
You are really helping and safeguarding Ethereum over most other blockchains, right? So how are you safeguarding, enhancing Ethereum's historical data availability, and why is it important to do that?
Yeah, so this gets into the ideological argument behind Ethereum and Ethereum's success and essentially the ethos of Ethereum. So if you look at the blockchain space right now, Ethereum is really in a is in a tough spot. So on one side, it's competing with Bitcoin as a store of value, right? So this is where the ultrasound money narrative comes in. That's where the burn fee mechanism comes in. Yeah, the gas uses it to make Ethereum itself deflationary and, and so on, blah, blah, blah. And then on the other hand, it's actually competing with Solana as a application platform. And, I think there's a Chinese proverb that if you chase 2 rabbits, you catch none. And now what's happening is it's losing the battle with Bitcoin. Bitcoin has the ETF. Bitcoin has the institutional adoption. Bitcoin is well understood. It's known as a digital gold, very clear kind of narrative. But it's also losing the battle with Solana because Solana has amazing traction. Solana is super fast. The whole ecosystem is building up. Breakpoint was just last week. Amazing traction. And so what's happened with Ethereum itself is that the core value prop is being questioned by insiders. Vitalik outlined this roll-up centric roadmap a few years ago, where you can scale Ethereum using all of the rollups like Arbitrum and Optimism and all these different chains. And now the community is starting to question if this is the right approach and if this is actually accruing value to Ethereum itself, or are these rollups parasitic, where they're just leeching off all of the traction and all of the fee structure and all of the users, because they all live on the L2s, not on the L1. And then at some point, they could just fork away and say, we don't need Ethereum anymore. We'll just be standalone sovereign chains. So the community is at a crossroads. It's not clear if this roadmap is the de facto. So that's where things are today. And our thesis is that Ethereum should continue to double down on this roadmap of having rollups as the scaling strategy. And the community needs to re-envision Ethereum as it was, 10 years ago when the white paper was written, but in a new modular stack. So what that means is that you have specialized layers for execution, specialized layers for consensus, specialized layers for data availability. And Ethereum itself fundamentally does not change the ethos. So one of the key aspects about Ethereum is it's not a data center chain. So let me talk about what that means. A lot of these faster throughput chains like Solana, but also on the Ethereum world, like let's say like EVM chains like Monad and so on, they make some trade-offs in order to achieve this fast throughput. So fundamentally what they do is they chuck out historical data, and they also are what is known as data center chains. So they're specialized for hardware that only runs in data centers, not in commodity, everyday Joe's computers. And so it's only available to a few select participants to actually run these nodes. And my fear is that Ethereum, in its battle to compete for mindshare with Solana, is making a set of choices that leads Ethereum to become a data center chain. And this is the exact opposite of what has led to Ethereum's dominance today. So one of the key aspects about Ethereum are these solo stakers. So there's about 1 million solo stakers, or about thereabouts. I have to check the number here, but there's a large number of people who run the Ethereum infrastructure on their commodity hardware at home. And that is the power of Ethereum. But by making these choices to compete with Solana, what ends up happening is these solo stakers are disenfranchised. They're thrown under the bus. They're rug pulled. And I think that is a mistake.
You guys are in the gaming sector, right?
Yeah. Yes.
How is SKALE a game changer in the gaming sector?
I must say, I love this question. This is a huge area for us. We call it gas-free gaming, and we really, we think it's the future of gaming. I think one of the main issues right now with adoption with blockchain gaming is a lot of Web 2 gamers, traditional gamers, are, still a little skeptical about the user experience, which makes a lot of sense, and also regarding the graphics being improved. But I think we've made a lot of headway there. But again, thanks to our gas fee architecture, zero gas fee architecture, gamers don't have to hit yes on their wallet constantly. They don't have to, have interruptions. There's no performance issues. Again, they're kind of that invisible blockchain experience that we like to say. So they're just experiencing the gameplay. They're experiencing it like the traditional, Web 2 world, because the transactions are recorded instantly on chain, and then the user doesn't even know they're happening. So I think by leveraging, our gasless transaction model and the high performance architecture, you can really create immersive gaming experiences with transactions that are done on chain. I think that's another one, is a lot of the Web3 games don't necessarily have a lot of the action on chain, just because it's so difficult to build right now. So with SKALE, you can really do a lot of on-chain stuff, and you can have true asset ownership. You can have really enhanced gameplay mechanics. And, SKALE with gaming, there's a lot of momentum there. In 2023, we were named the most active gaming chain by CoinGecko, which was really cool. We also have 5 of the top 25 games on DApp Radar. Some of those are, hosted on our Nebula Gaming Hub, and then some of them are also multi-chain, across many different blockchains. And then, when they joined SKALE, a lot of their users just want to play on the SKALE chain because, again, 0 gas fees like that. It's just something that you can't achieve on others. And then our, gaming unique active wallets have grown. I know this number sounds astronomical, 61,000% year over year and also like you were saying with, the 6 billion in gas fee savings. And one other component of this I would have to say is our speed. We have instant finality. As soon as a transaction happens, it's, recorded on the block. And, Dartmouth blockchain did an independent study about, TPS and who was the fastest. And we were named number 1, which was, again, really cool. So we'd really like to tout the Dartmouth blockchain. And then just a few games coming up from SKALE that we're really excited about. They're in beta right now. We've got Stray Shot, Fussy Fox, and Haven's Compass. And if you go check out their gameplay footage, it does not look like Web3 gaming. It looks really cool. It looks super fun to play. We've got some gamers and different DAOs playing with them now, but at SKALE, we're really excited for these games to go live because we think it's really going to change the way people view blockchain gaming. But, again, with SKALE, we think blockchain gaming and AI are really great use cases to use us. And then, again, we just want to empower developers to build whatever they want to do, unlimited potential to come over with gaming on SKALE. So again, really excited for that question. We think, in 6 months, the market will be changed from these new games coming out. So stay tuned with SKALE.